Hello everybody, it's Lisa at Start, and today I'm going to show you how to make some simple fabric flowers like these I've got here. So firstly you will need some cotton and a needle. You'll need some fabric. Now you can use any sort of fabric, but the softer the better. They tend to gather better, so old bedding or old pillowcases are ideal. Obviously a pair of scissors, a pen and something to draw around to create your circles. So I'm just using a reel of masking tape and I'm going to use that as my template. So as you can see, the examples that I've got here have got 5 petals. You can use 6 petals if you want to, like the rainbow one that I've done. Obviously I wanted the NHS rainbow colour, so I've put 6 petals on that, but generally I use 5. Any less than that looks a bit odd. So I have cut 5 circles of fabric for this. Now I've chosen to do all my circles the same colour fabric, but you can do each petal separate colours. So each circle makes 1 petal. So it's up to you what colours you decide to use. So the first thing you'll do is take your first circle and fold it in half and then fold it in quarters. So you've got a fan shape piece of fabric. Now on your needle, I want you to put a double length thread of cotton with a knot on the end. The reason I say put a double length thread on is that you're going to be gathering, and I find if it's a double length thread, a doubled up thread, then it's a bit stronger than a single piece of thread. So you can see what I mean by that, it's double length. Okay, so you take your folded first petal, just going to double check that. And whilst I'm holding it together, I'm going to start slightly in, if you can see, from the edge, the curved edge of the fan-shaped piece. And I'm going to do a short running stitch along that curve. So a running stitch is just in and out with your needle. Till you get to the end. Pull your thread needle through and leave that on your thread. And then you want to do exactly the same with the next 4 pieces. So I'll just show you again. Fold them in half, then in quarters, and then start at the end. So you're actually sewing on the curved edge of the fan shape. Okay. Okay, so I'm on the last one now, and when I've done the 5th petal, so you can see that they're all on the same piece of cotton. So when I've got to the end, I want to gently gather those up so you can see it starts forming the petal shape. Okay. Now, so it won't unravel and to make it easier to handle, I'm pinching very tightly at the end here, and I'm going to just do a couple of over stitches just to knot it off so it doesn't come unravelled. In fact, more than a couple, just to make sure. Okay, now I'm not going to cut that thread off because I'm still going to use that in a minute. And this is where we bring the two ends together to sew them together to make the circle. So on each end petal, if you just bring the very edge of it together and then put a few stitches through, so that it stays together like that, and then trim that off. And then you can just have a little play to get your petals in the right shape. So there we go. So we've got our 5 petals. Now, depending on what sort of material you use, you might end up with quite a big hole in the middle. Sometimes with fabric that's much stiffer, you get a hole in the middle. This is quite soft fabric, so it comes together quite nicely. It's not an issue, you can just hide the hole, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So now I'm ready to sew one of the circles of fabric on the back. If I was going to make this into a brooch, I would sew the brooch back, can you see here, onto the circle first. So I'm just going to do that just to make it easier for myself and a bit neater. So there I've got my brooch back already. Okay, so with my flower, if I turn it over, this is going to hide the sort of ugly gathering part on the back of the flower. So again, I'm going to thread my needle with a double length thread and put a knot on the end, like so. Now to sew this to the back, I'll always start from the back of the felt bit. So this is so that the knot is hidden behind. You don't really want to see that because it's quite scruffy. And then I'm just going to work my way around, taking a little bit of the petal fabric through the felt as well. So I'll work through the petal fabric and then through the felt. And I'm going to work all the way around the outside of the flower and the circle of felt. So I've sewn all the way round until I'm right back where I first started it. And now I'll just do a couple of stitches in the same place and then cut my thread. So you can see I've gone all the way around the felt and the brooch back. So that's the back finished, and now we just need to put in the button. Now you can put a button straight in and sew it, or I quite like to put it on a piece of backing felt. It just adds a little bit to it, I think. So I've put a new piece of thread on my needle, and again I've put a knot on the end. Now I'm actually going to sew the button and the felt all at the same time. So first of all I'm going to sew through the back of the felt, through the button, like that, just to make it easier to handle, just a couple of times. So that's all ready. And then while that's still on the back, I'm going to put it in place and sew straight through the back of the flower. So as you can see, my needle's coming out just at the side of the brooch back, and I'm going to go back around the brooch back and back out through the hole of the button, which sometimes is a bit fiddly to find, and you have to be careful you don't stab yourself with the needle, which I quite often do, and back out through the back. And when you've done that enough times, I'm just going to go one more time, just to make sure it's properly fixed. So at the back now I'm going to just sew a couple of over stitches just to knot off the cotton. So one for good measure, and cut my thread. So there you have it, your fabric flower brooch. You don't have to just use them for brooches. You can sew them onto hair bobbles. You can sew them onto a handbag, and you could sew them onto cushions as well if you did lots of them. So don't forget to send us your photographs if you've managed to make any of these. Good luck. Thanks everybody.